Good evening. We'd like to welcome everyone that's here tonight for this Pitt County Board of Commissioners meeting and those who are watching on TV. I call this meeting to order. Let's have a roll call. All right, if you'll stand, we're going to have the invocation by Mr. McLaughlin, the pledge by Mr. Garris.
Shall we pray? Heavenly Father, we come this evening, ask you for your guidance, that we may have this meeting to be as you wish it to be. Guide us and bless these your people that are assembled here. Yes, these blessed in thy holy name. Amen.
Amen. Let's face the flag, please. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Have a motion on the agenda.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Let's vote. All right. We have a public hearing, Mr. Manager.
Yes, sir. You have one public hearing tonight regarding the zoning ordinance text amendment, and James Rhodes is going to present this item.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. We do have one public hearing that relates to our zoning ordinance tonight, and I want to give you a little background on this particular topic. It deals with the water supply watershed, and at this, I'll say late date, we're actually including or requesting to include a high-density option. For you that aren't familiar with the water supply watershed, this is basically a 10-mile upstream area that's got special protection put on it. It's above or upstream of the water intake along the Tar River that Greenville Utility uses. And just to orient you a little bit on the map, as most of you probably are familiar, right off Old River Road is the location right here, kind of between the two E's in Greenville. It's the location of the water treatment area, drinking water treatment center. And in turn, 10 miles upstream, the state developed these regulations back in the early 90s, 10 miles upstream, and any of the area that drains into that particular basin, in this case the Tar River Basin, that is protected through what's called water supply watershed regulations. So we've got two jurisdictions that we're also dealing with here. The area just adjacent to the intake and probably about a mile upstream or so is within the city's either corporate limits or extraterritorial jurisdictions. So the city has its own set of regulations there. Outside of that, in the unincorporated part of the county, that falls under the county's regulations. And in turn, we've had regulations in place for about 20 years. When we brought our zoning ordinance into play about 10 years ago, we brought this particular set of regulations in as an overlay district. So you've got your zoning regulations, and then on top of that, these water supply watershed regulations also have specific requirements that have to be met. So what we've got tonight, again, when these regulations were developed, 20 years ago, we really didn't see a need for the high density option. We left that blank. But the state does allow for these types of improvements to go in to still allow for different types of options for development, even with a lot of additional impervious surfaces. So we've received a request to look at this particular portion of the ordinance, and what we've done is develop the regulations to go in here based off of the state model ordinance. So again, this is per state requirements, and it is allowable. Just some of the highlights here also, we do have sections that have been added for the permits that are required and also the application that's required to start this process if someone is interested in moving forward. And section 7.3.d through H include all the regulations from the state model ordinance concerning the high density option. So what this exactly means, out in the unincorporated part of the county, typically the restriction had been you could not have any more than 36% of impervious surfaces on a newly developed parcel. So that would include your rooftop, your parking area, anything where water could not percolate down into the soil. With this particular high-density option, the build-upon area can be increased to 70%. So that may sound kind of bad in some ways, but what we do on the other side is get improvements as far as how that water, that runoff is treated. So there are installation requirements for some of these best management practices for removing some of the nutrients and also dealing with the peak flows that come off these areas. So what we see is really a win-win situation. It's another option for developers, but at the same time, we're still protecting the water quality, and specifically in this area for the drinking water. A couple other things. It does also set guidelines for how these features are maintained. Any of these stormwater wetlands, grass swales, any of those that are required to go in have to be properly maintained. And in turn, there is a requirement for an annual report just to ensure things are functioning properly. We've added a couple of definitions to refer to the Technical Review Committee, and that's a staff group that actually would review plans, as well as the watershed administrator, that being the person through my office that would ensure that the regulations are met. As we mentioned with some of our rezoning requests recently, we've worked with legal staff to ensure, based on some recent court cases, about any amendments to the zoning ordinance, making sure that we've got the proper documentation. One is the consistency with the land use plan. And with that, we see, as provided in your agenda package, that this is consistent with the land use plan. It does still ensure that we're protecting the water quality in this area, as well as some other features. And then, is it reasonable in the public interest? We believe it is. Again, protecting water quality is very vital. And it also follows the state regulations that are in place. So with that tonight, Mr. Chair, before the public hearing begins, our recommendation is to adopt that consistency statement, and also that's included in the package, as well as all the amendment language that's included. And after the public hearing, we'll be back up to reiterate those items. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rhodes. With that being said, I declare the public hearing open. Is there anybody that wishes to speak on this issue, for or against? Seeing none, I declare the public hearing closed. It's a pleasure of the board.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion based upon the recommendation of our planning board and our planning staff that we approve this recommendation as outlined on page 2 in our agenda package.
Any discussion?
I would second that.
Yes, Mr. Owens.
James, was there any, and I'm sure there is, but did the planning board and the people get into any cost involved in this? The implementation of it?
No, sir, not really. What this
You
allows.
answered my question.
Okay.
Thank you,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any further discussion? Let's vote. Mr. Hammond? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Want to do these? Yeah. Do we have a motion on the resolutions?
So moved.
I second it.
We'll do these together, or do we need to do them separate? Okay,
Together is
do them
fine.
together.
So as Chairman has just announced, and you've just voted on the resolutions of appreciation for your prior chairman and vice chairman, we've got framed resolutions we'd like to present right now. If I can ask Commissioner Mark Owens to come down, and we'll do that presentation. Then following, we'll do Vice Chairman Webb, or both can come down at the same time. Either way.
He did abstain. Oh, that's what happened. Thank you.
Tonight, we have resolutions of appreciation for both our former chairman and vice chairman. We'll start with our former chairman, Mr. Owens, and I'll let him proceed and read the resolution. Let me show it to the public first. Beautifully framed and prepared resolution. Entitled Office of the Pitt County Board of Commissioners Resolution of Appreciation honoring Mark W. Owens Jr. as chairman. Whereas Mr. Owens has led the Pitt County Board of Commissioners as chairman from December 2013 to December 2014 with dignity and perseverance. Whereas Mr. Owens, as of 2014, has served over 22 years as a Pitt County Commissioner and also served numerous times as chairman of this board. Whereas Mr. Owens has provided the Board of Commissioners with steadfast leadership and guidance during his tenure as chairman. Whereas under Chairman Owens' leadership, the board approved the implementation of the Canine Control Ordinance, supported the redemption of outstanding hospital revenue bonds, and helped to reestablish the general fund balance to the established policy range of between 18 to 20%, almost 20%. And whereas Chairman Owens guided the board through new economic opportunities in terms of economic development with the expansion of Patheon and Asthma Greenville of North Carolina. Whereas Mr. Owens has, through his attentiveness and devotion, exhibited concern for the overall improvement of the quality of life for the Pitt County citizens. Now therefore it be resolved that the Pitt County Board of Commissioners does here commend Mark W. Owens Jr. for providing stalwart and able leadership and diligence to the board and to the citizens of Pitt County during his tenure as chairman of the board for the year 2014, adopted this 15th day of December 2014, signed by our now chairman Glenn Webb and attested by our clerk Kimberly Hines. Mr. Webb.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I asked you what you asked all the Boy Scouts. Do you have anything you want to say?
Yes, I do. I got about 35 minutes. I want to thank this board for giving me the honor to be your chairman. In addition to that, I want to thank the citizens for giving me the opportunity to serve you. Thank you, Mr. Lee.
Well, in like fashion, we also have a beautifully framed and prepared resolution to honor Mr. Webb for his tenure as vice chairman. Again, it is titled Office of the Pitt County Board of Commissioners Resolution of Appreciation honoring Glenn Webb as vice chairman. Whereas Mr. Webb has served faithfully and honorably as vice chairman of the Pitt County Board of Commissioners from December 2013 to December 2014. Whereas Mr. Webb has provided the Board of Commissioners with steadfast leadership commitment as the board's vice chairman. Whereas during Glenn Webb's tenure as vice chairman, the board has ushered in new economic development growth with the expansion of Patheon and Asthma Greenville of North Carolina, supported the redemption of outstanding hospital revenue bonds, and helped to establish the general fund balance to the established policy range of between 18 to 20%. Whereas the Board of Commissioners expresses their appreciation to Glenn Webb for his guidance, organization, leadership skills, and commitment to the service during his tenure as vice chairman. Whereas Mr. Webb has, through his attentiveness and devotion, exhibited concern for the overall improvement and quality of life for the Pitt County citizens. Whereas Glenn Webb's term as vice chairman, he also served on the Alcohol Beverage Control ABC Board, Emergency Services Oversight Committee, and the Shepherd Memorial Library Board. Whereas Mr. Webb has shown his dedication to the citizens of Pitt County by becoming the president-elect of the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners for 2014 and will become the president for the 2015 year, enabling him to share the needs and interests of the citizens of Pitt County on a broader scale. Now therefore be resolved, the members of the Pitt County Board of Commissioners commend Glenn Webb for his efficient leadership and outstanding service as vice chairman of the board for the calendar year 2014, adopted this 15th day of December 2014, signed by our current vice board chairman, Beth Ward.
I can't say any better than Mr. Owens did. Thank the board for the honor, as well as the citizens who sent me here for the honor and serve. Thank you. Next, we have our public addresses to the board. We have one person signed up, Dr. Johnson.
I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you and to the board. I have been seeking in my mind where I might serve in the future. And possibilities I thought have been those that I served on, the Board of Health, East Carolina Behavioral Health, and liaison with the Board of Education. In seeking the possibilities, I learned that the bylaws of East Carolina Behavioral Health would not allow me to serve on that board, in that the requirement includes an existing commissioner, and that is also true for the Board of Health. There is, to the best of my knowledge, no such requirement for liaison with the Board of Education. I believe my credentials show, as I will pass out to you, that I am qualified to serve on the Board of Education, and I will pass out that qualification.
Thank you, Dr. Johnson.
As I believe you know, I served as a liaison from this board to the Board of Education. And I believe that I was eminently qualified, as the information that I just passed out would indicate. There are other reasons why I'm qualified to serve as a liaison to the Board of Education. I supervised student teachers, from the now Department of College of Health and Human, the College of Health and Human Performance.
Dr. Johnson, time has expired, but I'll give you 30 more seconds to finish your presentation.
Perhaps I should just open for questions rather than continuing.
Then by policy, we don't address questions during the public comment period, by our rule.
All right, so be it. I am requesting that I be appointed liaison to the Board of Education.
Thank you, Dr. Johnson. No one else has signed up. Is anyone else who wishes to address this board? All right, seeing none, Mr. Manager.
Okay, next on items reports, you have a series of reports. First, we have Dr. Dennis Massey, who will give a Pitt Community College report. Dr. Massey's been coming before the board semi-annually, I believe, to give periodic reports.
Welcome, Dr. Massey.
Good evening, and Merry Christmas to all of you. What a great time of the year to be meeting, plenty of things going on. We've got the end of the semester we're trying to finish up, and this is the shortest turnaround we have between the one semester and the next, so we're speedily enrolling students for next semester. I'd like to welcome the new county commissioners, Mr. Farley and Ms. Williams. Look forward to getting to know you better, and I think we're going to try to schedule an orientation for the two of you and any of the rest of you who would like to participate sometime in January, to be determined. So welcome. I have just a few things I want to talk with you about. The first one really has to do with the best thing of my job, and that is graduation. We're in the business of completion. One of the challenges of community colleges, we get students from all different walks of life, and we take them from where they are and move them forward to their educational goals. Unfortunately, not all of them finish up, and that's one of the challenges we have, a kind of revolving door. And we work hard to get students to complete their degree, complete their certification, so they've got something tangible and they can take into the workforce and they can go on to transfer for further education if they choose. This time of the year, we are looking at the end of fall term, and we have about 330 students who are completing their degrees, and we have about 472 credentials students will be qualifying for. We don't have a graduation this time of the year. We wait and invite them to the May commencement with all the other students. Wanted to share with you a little information on how we've succeeded in following what the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation has supported, called Completion by Design. We're working to do what we can to get students along in this pathway towards degree completion. These numbers show that we've had some success with this. And this is even during 2013-14, when we've seen a little bit of a flattening of our enrollment. We're not growing at the same rate we were before. But you can see we're still registering pretty healthy increases of graduates, and that's on our curriculum program. That's credit program. That's not non-credit. I'll get to that in a second. Speaking of joyous events, I went to our pinning ceremony for our occupational therapy assistant last Saturday. 17 students finished their two-year program. It's the only program that we have that finishes mid-year. But we do have a basic law enforcement training. We have that program finishing actually the latest session this week. We have 18 students who are finishing that. Just a few words about our enrollment. Our credit student enrollment, as I said, is starting to flatten out a little bit. You can see over a 3-year period, we increased from 11 to 12 to 12, 13, and then just a slight increase to 13, 14. And this is head count. What we're seeing with the credit enrollment is an increase in the number of part-time students, which means overall the number of student credit hours is not increasing. But the head count, and why we have more part-time students? Because more people are at work. They're working full-time or working part-time and going to school part-time. So that's one of our challenges in getting them to complete their degree, because if they're going part-time, they're obviously not going at the same pace as a full-time student. I mentioned the non-credit or continuing education programs. Most people don't realize the expanse of our non-credit programming. You noticed that we had a little bit over 12,000 credit students this past year. Well, we had almost the same number for non-credit continuing education. To me, that's quite impressive, and that shows that we're serving the people who are employed and people who are doing short-term programs, not just degree and certificate programs. We've made a real focused effort on increasing those numbers. And here's an example of some of the continuing education programs that we have. They're varied. Some of them are a semester or even a year in length. Some of them are shorter. Our small business center is very active and does a lot of work in entrepreneurial help and in trying to get people started into business and have realistic plans for the future. The business and industry services, that's the direct support that we have for local industry, both new companies like Patheon starting up now, and then existing companies. We are a pass-through for state money that goes directly to those companies in training. I want to really confine my remarks, the rest of the report, to two areas. The first is workforce development. That's really what Pitt Community College is about, preparing people for jobs. That's why certificates and degrees are so important. And these are just a few initiatives that we've seen this fall. The Align for NC Works, you are aware that we have now allied with the Department of Commerce and the local Workforce Development Board much more closely. This is a state effort, and it's called NC Works. And so what we're doing is much more coordinated, and I think it's more effective. We've had good partnership, and I thank you for allowing me to serve on that Workforce Development Board, so I have kind of a different perspective on things than most of the presidents. Customized training is that direct service that we have to business and industry. I mentioned the Career Readiness Certificate. That is a major plus that we offer, and we're expanding the number of not just students, high school students and college students, but also people in the workforce who are being part of that Career Readiness Certificate network. We've done a lot of good work recently for Patheon, for Roberts, for Alliance One, and other companies, and we're seeing the awareness in the community of the services we provide expand. Finally, advisory committees are so important for us because what we do is get people from business and industry to come into the campus and help us make sure that we're on the same page as what local business and industry is on. I mentioned the Career Readiness Certificate. This gives you an idea of the expanse of that. We are one of the strongest Career Readiness Certificate hosters in the state. I think Wayne County may be a little bit ahead of us, but we have done a diligent job to get the word out on what this is as a tool, both for job seekers and for employers, because employers like this because it's a national credential. They know the skill level of these people. This is a shot from the Natural Blends opening. You know, the Farmville firm that does a lot of food processing and food preparation. We did a lot of pre-hiring for them to get them off the ground. Very grateful. And I think it was a great combination that we were able to provide for Natural Blends. We continue to do a lot of work for companies like Mestech, and this is an example of welding that we do, welding training out there. We're offering welding much more. It's one of the fastest growing programs at Pitt Community College. If you come by almost any time of night or day, you'll see the welding operation going strong. Just a few other shots of some of our workforce development programs. This is our nurse assisting program. We run nurse assisting in several formats. It's a short-term course. It's not the lengthy registered nurse program. This is one of our instructors, Tanya Forrest, and a few students who are going through a clinical here. This was a program that we ran in machining, actually to demonstrate to veterans. Veterans came through and we gave them a taste of different types of programming that we do at Pitt Community College. I'm pleased to say that we've been able to pick up some students and get some follow-through on the part of some of these veterans who are leaving the services. We have over 600 students and dependents of veterans that are enrolled at Pitt Community College. It's a big sector. The last thing I want to point out is actually the next to the last thing is working with Pitt County Schools and East Carolina University. I did the Education Summit last week, and it was a pleasure to interact with Superintendent Lenker and Provost Ron Mitchelson. Let me just touch on a few of these topics. The early college PCC classes in high school. We are doing a much stronger job of working collaboratively with the public schools. You can see by the list here, the number of students who are enrolled, the number of classes we offer is growing strong, and I expect that that will continue to grow. The top line, by the way, is still in process of being developed. Those classes are primarily in technical areas, but they also include some university transfer courses. We get a lot of high school students into the campus that give them an idea of what the real high-tech environment is like. This is it from our automotive program, as is this one. And our automotive program is also really booming. It's going very strong right now. This is an example of a welding program that we have. We're offering welding, by the way, on campus as well as at Aidan-Grifton High School and in North Pitt High School, and we hope to be doing more technical programming at schools in the future. We're also doing electrical programs at Farmville Central. Now, I mentioned about East Carolina University, and I could talk for a long time about the articulation and the interactions that we have with them. It's just accelerated in the last year. Right now, 88% of the students that we transfer to East Carolina University are flourishing. That's a high percentage. That's high even compared with their native students, students that begin there. And they're welcoming the transfer students in almost all areas. One new initiative that we're doing is a reverse transfer program, which means if the student doesn't complete the degree at Pitt Community College, they transfer to East Carolina. If they take some coursework there that satisfies our degree, we'll seek them out and award that degree kind of ex post facto, and they'll get their associate degree while they're still enrolled at East Carolina University. It's a boost for them psychologically to get that degree, and for many of them, it pushes them, spurs them on. We also have to recognize, though, that we have students, our average age of student is 26. So we have a lot of students who are not coming right out of high school. And those students are going into the workforce, they're coming back to us, they're staying for a while, maybe they're dropping out for a while, stopping out to work again, but we want to get them to move along that path towards completion. Finally, just a few words about facilities. I thank you for the support that you've provided for our facilities over the years, and I'll talk with all of you again in the future, I know. The GOES Center addition is moving along under budget and on schedule. We will be moving into the GOES Center addition sometime in February or early March. At that point, we'll be moving our bookstore from the Vernon White building into new quarters. We'll also be creating a career center that we really didn't have before, which works back to that workforce development component, because we want to get private sector people in there and connect with students and employers more effectively. We'll also have a new computer lab in that facility. As an example of the construction progress done, by the way, local contractor Hudson Brothers is taking charge on this project. We also have worked a lot on the science building planning. We're still in the design development stage for that project. We hope to have everything all set with the State Construction Office to do bids in the summer. And then we'll be, at that point, creating a building which is about 72,000 square feet. It will be the largest building on our campus with biotechnology, biology, physics, many different departments, and many opportunities, again, for the private sector and local companies to come on campus and work with our students. I think it'll be a win-win for all of us. And although it's not final yet, we have great hope that the EDA, the U.S. Department of Commerce, through the Economic Development Association, will award us an additional $2 million to help us expand upon the original design for that science building. I think it'll be a great win for not only our programs on campus, but also the early college high school, because I think the early college high school will benefit from that expanded space. I've got on this list also champions. We are at this point waiting to move in our basic law enforcement training program into the Champions facility, which is just on the other side of Sam's Club. And we're also hoping that we can expand outreach to communities like Farmville and Ayden in the near future. We've been working on trying to develop a center in Farmville. We are expanding programming at Farmville Central, not just during the day, but in the evening in the spring. So I think there's lots of good things going on at Pitt Community College, not all on the Pitt Community College campus, but all over the community. And I welcome any questions that you have.
Thank you, Dr. Massey. Anyone have any questions, Dr. Massey?
Move we accept this report for the record.
Second it.
Second.
Dr. Massey, we appreciate all your hard work and the contributions of Pitt Community College to this county. There's no doubt we wouldn't be where we are without you, so thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Webb. And before I leave, let me make sure I recognize our board chair, Charles Long, who's at the back there from Farmville. Many of you know him. And two vice presidents, Vice President Tom Gould and Vice President Rick Owens. They're great support.
Mr. Long is my former principal. I thought I was in trouble when I saw him walk.
He's a great leader for the campus. Thank you.
Ms. Booker?
Good evening. I'm pleased to announce to you that we still remain ahead in the collection rate. The collection rate for the current year on real and personal property taxes is 70.95, and the combined rate last year was 67.60. So that is an increase, which you'll see in the next to last section at the bottom of your page, of 3.35%.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Booker?
Motion to accept the report.
Second it.
All right, let's vote.
Thank you.
Dwayne?
Evening,
Mr.
Mr.
Hammond.
Chair.
Did you already push it?
Evening, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, Merry Christmas to everyone. Tonight, we're presenting yet another month of fiscal report. Believe it or not, we're 5 months through the fiscal year. We've closed the month of November, which represents 41.67% of our fiscal year. We continue to operate in a fiscally sound manner. We're actually ahead, which would be somewhat reflective of Ms. Booker's report of where we were at this point last fiscal year. Our revenues in excess of expenditures are actually $2.9 million ahead this fiscal year. One of the big factors that we attribute that to, and Ms. Booker didn't cover it in her report, but I do want to give her and her staff some credit with the change in tag and tax, in that our county is not responsible for the billing of that anymore. They've done a very good job of reallocating their resources internally, and our prior year tax collection has doubled from prior year. It was about 1.4 million last fiscal year. This year, we've already doubled that to 2.8 million, so that's attributed to a lot of the increase. They're able to work some of those old accounts, so that's helping the bottom line tremendously. There is one error on the report I just want to point out. Commissioner Garris, I wanted to make sure, because he did make note of it before the meeting. Our fiscal year general fund, available fund balance is reflecting 19.98% on this report. It is still the same as reported by our auditor at the last meeting at 19.90%. So we will make that edit on the report.
I thought he told you it was 20%, Jimmy.
I thought he did too. That's why I was asking, what I was asking before the meeting, why in the world he couldn't find another 0.02% to make that 20, and he's taken away.
And speaking of the audit, since the last time we reported to you, we have heard back from the Local Government Commission, and our audit was approved with no changes. It is posted to our department website at pittcountync.gov. We'll also have a copy available for the public in the county manager's office here at the main administrative building.
Thank you, Mr. Holder. Any questions for Mr. Holder?
Motion to
Move
accept
for
report.
acceptance.
All right, let's vote. Ms. Whaley?
Very good. Very good.
Too short. Okay, good evening. Thank you, Chairman and the Board of Commissioners, for allowing me to give a report to the new commissioners. My name is Michelle Whaley, and I'm the Director of Pitt County Animal Control Services. I encourage you to come by, visit, or if you have any questions specific to my department, to please contact me so I can help you. So tonight, we're giving a brief report on where we're at, and I'm going to cover staffing, the dog licensing, the canine control ordinance, and the shelter expansion. So we're going to start with staffing. I'm happy to say that we have now hired all the positions, the 2 admins, the 3 shelter attendants, and the field officers. So we're fully staffed. Also, we interviewed and did an internal promotion to assistant manager, which was vacated by a retirement. And I'm pleased to say that we promoted Chris Arnold, who is one of our officers, to that position, and he is working very hard. And it's been fabulous for me to have somebody that I can rely on that really knows the job. And we have ordered all the equipment and vehicles needed. We're just waiting for the vehicles to come in, but all the equipment's been ordered, so we will be ready to go with our new ordinances January 1st. Dog licensing. So July through September bills are completed. I just want to remind you that it did take us about 3 months to get the software bought, purchased, work with the vendor to get it set up how we needed it. Plus, we worked very closely with MIS to create a program because the biggest thing was to figure out what the billable addresses were versus non-billable. And that did take us a while. Recently, I've switched gears and I've decided to have one admin start working on the current licenses, which we're a month behind because the way we get them from the vets reports. So I decided to have one admin work on the current bills, current month bills, and have the other admin work on the catch-up. So we are working on October and November bills now. I also want to say that our data is only as good as what the vets turn into us. So we've had to do a lot of stopping and make a lot of phone calls. Either they are missing data or we're not sure of the altered status, which is crucial to our billing because of the prices depending upon altered versus unaltered. So as of today, we have sent out 1,059 bills. We have a 30% payment compliance rate. We've collected 5,240 to date. And we are having ongoing discussions with the municipalities to talk about county-wide licensing. So, let me go back to the municipalities just to give you an update on where we are with that. Dwayne and Scott had one meeting with all the municipalities individually. After that, an interlocal agreement was prepared by our county attorney, Janice Gallagher, which addresses sheltering and licensing, and it was prepared for the municipalities to review. Since then, 2 follow-up meetings have been conducted where 8 out of the 10 municipalities did attend. And in the past years, the town of Simpson, Grimesland, and Falkland have received enhanced animal control services at no charge. In our research, this has happened for quite a long time now, much longer before I started in 2002. So right now, we are proposing a per-hour fee for those animal control services to these 3 towns. 1, in the issue of fairness to all municipalities, and 2, we do not have the resources currently to provide full animal control services to every municipality in Pitt County. So the interlocal agreement that's already been drafted would be for all municipalities to sign, and then these 3, again, Simpson, Grimesland, and Falkland, would receive an attachment for the fee for their enhanced animal control services. Does that make sense, or did I lose anybody? Okay, just wanted to point that out.
Just to clarify a little bit, that's the same agreement that we have with other municipalities.
The interlocal agreement that's been drafted
Right.
would apply to everyone.
Everybody.
And that specifically addresses the sheltering and licensing, so the licensing would be countywide.
But the agreement prior to.
The separate attachment.
Those three, what's the difference?
The difference is, in those towns, we have looked at animal cruelty cases, we've done dangerous dogs, we've done nuisance animals, and even traps.
Right.
So, in the issue of fairness, it's not really fair for them to get enhanced and increased services in the other municipalities.
Right. I
And
just wanted to
also, we don't
clarify
have
that
the
it was the same
resources,
thing
you
that
know,
the
to
other ones are
do
getting.
everyone. So we're just trying to make everything equal and fair.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that everybody understood that was what, it's the same thing the other municipalities were already receiving.
Well, they don't receive full animal control
No, I
services because they
understand
have their
that.
own departments.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Michelle, do you have room where someone could donate 7 dogs, 3 house-trained dogs and 4 hunting dogs to the animal shelter?
I'm going to talk about our space. Every day is different for space, so I encourage the citizen to call. We may not be able to take 7 animals from one owner all on the same day, but we'll try to work with them and take, say, 3 one day, 2 the next day, and get them in the system as quickly as possible. But space, we tell the citizens to call every day and work with us if they have multiple animals, because 7 animals by one person in one day would be a strain on us.
Yes. My question is, in reviewing the minutes and my report from previous boards that you all considered, my concern is that there was a lot of dangerous episodes or accident in the northern part of the river. Then why is it that the enhanced services are in these 3 townships and not considered beyond that point?
I can't really explain that other than in our research, and I know I and Dwayne Holder and Janice have talked about this and looked into it and tried to do some digging back. I'm not really sure when it started or how it started. Basically, those towns don't have any animal control services designated, not even in part-time. And so somewhere along the line, Pitt County started doing it. My hope is in the future, especially January 1st, I will have more than one officer work that area. That is our busiest area for complaints. And we will be able to provide, you know, more enhanced and quicker service to that area.
Well, in view of the previous discussions of what I read and the number of bites and the fact that north of the river was used to really promote your increased services and your increased funding and budgets, but yet I don't see them included in the enhancement, and I was curious about it.
Ms. Williams, the enhancement, again, is for 3 municipalities that technically we've been providing a service in that we probably should not have been, but due to practice, animal control was going into those municipalities. So what we're saying is now that it's a new day with a new ordinance, if they would like us to continue that, we've got to charge an hourly, or we're recommending to charge an hourly rate to go into those municipalities to do this. Just because obviously our animal control department could not take on the services of, say, a Greenville or a Winterville or an Aden or Farmville, one of the larger municipalities. So they have to pay for the enhancement, I guess, is what we're recommending to you. Another point I want to draw out too was on the interlocal agreement, what we have asked them to do is basically just not to adopt our animal control ordinance, but to consider adopting the dog licensing fees within the city to generate revenue. We basically, as the county, would bill and collect that fee on their behalf, assuming the municipality adopts a resolution to allow us to do that. The revenue from that would go towards debt service on the expansion and the ongoing maintenance of that facility is perpetual into the future. We've told them that there's a couple options. A, they could adopt the animal licensing fee structure. B, if they didn't want to adopt animal control licensing, yet they still wanted to use the shelter, they may want to consider a payment in lieu of the licensing, and we could calculate what we would anticipate to get from that municipality, and by agreement, they could go that route. The third route, which is really not preferable, because what we've told them is we really need them to participate because we expect our numbers to go up because of the ordinance enforcement, and if our numbers go up, we need revenue to pay for the shelter expansion, and we need them to be a team player and be a part of this. If not, then we were telling them we might have to recommend to the board that we may have to make them the least priority or no priority in the shelter, because we'll have all the other jurisdictions, primarily being the rural Pitt County, but the other towns that participate. So that's kind of where we stand on that.
All right, thank you. I have another question. She said that there was a lot of new positions that she hired, and how many of those new positions did you hire are previously retired people?
I don't believe any of them. I
Thank you.
was able to steal a couple from other counties already trained, which was real beneficial with our
Thank you.
changes. Okay, moving along, the Canine Control Ordinance, as you are aware, does go into effect January 1st. We've done a lot of media work. I would like to thank our PIO department. They've done an extreme amount of work in a short period of time. Hopefully you have seen the commercials in our literature. It is all on the pittcountync.gov website, right there on the homepage. Click the picture of the dog. It'll take you on to all that links. We've done some training. We've been coordinating with the Sheriff's Department. I have spoken to community groups that have asked me to go out into the public. I've been on Henry Hinton's show. I was on WITN. So we're really trying to get the message out there. Also, we held two public forums, one at community schools and one at the Pitt County Agricultural Center. And again, I'm trying to make my way around the community to different groups and neighborhood watch meetings. So hopefully everybody has seen a little bit of that. And the shelter expansion. Short term, I basically divided what we've always referred to as our adoptable section, and I've taken 10 of those runs, and they are now going to be used for the stray holding runs. And so I've decreased the number of runs for adoption. Still trying to keep some pens available to keep our adoption program going, but also to allow as many runs as I can for the new Canine Control Ordinance. Again, this is short term, also because with the addition of staff, we couldn't all be housed at the animal shelter. So the animal control officers are temporarily reassigned to the developmental services building. So I only see them when they come into the shelter bringing animals or so forth. So we do a lot of email. They all have now laptops. So I want them to be in the community, in their areas, being visible. Kind of a community policing idea. I want the citizens in those areas to know who their animal control officer is, to see them visible so they can work together, especially when the Canine Control Ordinance comes into effect. We do have a design proposal from shelter planners. It is being reviewed internally and will probably be coming forward for your review and approval in the near future. And also, we're going to discuss the pros and the cons, with cost being a major factor in consideration with shelterplanners.com. In last year's capital improvement plan, we put a placeholder in the amount of $1.1 million for this. And depending on construction and renovation or all new construction, the price looks like it's going to range from $1.6 million up to $3.5 million. So we definitely need to look at the pros and cons of renovating our existing space versus building an adoption center versus building one new facility that will house all operations. So with that, that's kind of the state of affairs right now. Again, I'm feeling confident we're ready to go January 1st. We're definitely telling citizens we're still putting them on dog trap or cat trap requests right now, but we're telling them January 1st we will be able to offer a lot more. I do plan on having a minimum of 2 officers in the north of the river area where a lot of our calls are, with 1 floater. And I'm just going to see how the call volumes go and kind of shift everybody around as needed. We are now capturing all of our complaints on the computer system finally. So it's nice to be able to have all the callers in a system that can easily be retrieved. We can look at repeat offenders. We can look at, where people that may have aggressive dogs live. And hopefully all these things we've put in place will make our community a safer one for all involved.
Thank you. Michelle, does anyone have any questions?
Yes. $1.6 million, you say, for repair? Is this additional to the previous allocation that they just received?
The CIP actually has $1,260,000 is what, in the capital improvement plan, what Shelter Planners is telling us is a higher, potentially a higher range if we look at new construction versus renovation. What is in the budget right now is the cost for operational costs of the vehicles, the personnel. At this point, it does not include debt payment on a newer renovated facility, but the but in this is the revenues collected from the animal licensing would be dedicated toward debt services. I think how we had figured that, correct, Dwayne?
That's correct.
Okay.
So, assuming countywide collection.
Right. And we've talked to the municipalities too, that if they don't participate, then the smaller the shelter we will be building, and then obviously then the less participation, they will not be able to participate as fully, per se.
Anyone else have any questions for Michelle?
Well,
I got one,
I agree
Mr.
with the concern that the estimates that are coming in are significantly greater than what we originally thought. So we need to pay real close attention to that, and we may end up having to do some phased in to this program or something like that, because you're talking about in excess of 2x.
Thank you. Mr. Owens?
Michelle, we've said all along since we had those hearings and people come in, what really hit me, and I think most of this board, was the dangers and the injuries that being occurred by bites, wild dogs, or ferocious dogs, or whatever you want to call them. But since the notice has gone out and since people become aware of it, has there been less of that?
I think our dangerous dog cases have actually gone down. Our bites have kind of leveled out. Again, they tend to be seasonal. In the warmer weather and people are more active, we probably have an increase in traffic and outside activity. But so far, the public we've talked to, the majority of them are happy that we're going to be able to do more. I mean, you have a few people that I live in the country and this is why, but a majority of the citizens are very pleased to know that we can send an officer out and do our best to capture that animal and get rid of the problem for them. So the majority of them are very happy to see it coming.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ms. Ward.
I just wanted to make the statement, I mean, hearing the amount of money from 1.2 million to 3 point something, I don't want that to frighten the citizens. I just want to reinforce that after all of the meetings and all the plans and all the hearings we had, and I think we came up with a good plan, but for this to work, our citizens are going to have to come forward and pay to license their dog, which is not an unusual thing in counties and cities. And where we're able to go with new personnel, vehicles, and a renovated building and an enlarged building or wherever we go is going to be directly related to our citizens stepping forth with that. Am I not correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Michelle, I see we have a 30% collection rate. What collection rate are we expecting?
Of course, we'd like it to be as high as possible. Just now getting to the point, I'm sending out second notices. You know, we're doing the educational, very nice approach right now. Honestly, I have mentioned to Dwayne this week that I'm not so sure that we don't need to look at some enforcement penalties to increase that collection rate. Some people have paid their bill but written me what I call love notes, and I'm keeping a file on those in my office. Most people, even if they are upset, once it's explained a little more fully to them, they actually calm down and pay it. So I've been pleased with that. I don't know if one barrier that I'm hoping is we should have the online licensing piece up in January, and I'm hoping offering that will also help increase our collection rate. Because most people don't write checks anymore, and to write it for $10 or $20, I'm wondering if they're holding on to it, and if we make it as easy as possible to pay it, I'm hoping that'll increase our collections as well.
What happens if they don't pay it?
Right now, if they don't pay, after it gets to a certain point, again, we're sending follow-up notices. At some point, we will turn it to legal, and then legal will go after collecting it as they do our other Pitt County fines and fees.
I think one of the easy tools would be to compare the file against the North Carolina debt set-off. So if you're getting a tax refund, just like we collect property taxes, an EMS bill, that'd be an easy one to match it to. This is not a true enforcement. It's enforcement, but not heavy, as heavy-handed.
How
And
much
that's
does
what
it cost
Dwayne and I
us to go after people that don't pay it?
I've never done it. I don't know that I can answer that.
What we do when we receive any collection action countywide is we look at the cost to be collected, and we compare that to the cost to collect it, which might be a filing fee in small claims court, and then we would balance all those circumstances to make a decision as to the best method for collection, whether that be reaching out by letter or considering debt set-off or further educating someone, or ultimately with the most extreme resort being a legal proceeding. But that would be a last resort, and I'm not sure yet that that would be appropriate for the collection of this type of fine, but we haven't ruled out any enforcement methodologies. We just have not crossed that bridge yet.
And I won't belabor it, but as my opinion on the fee has been well documented. And I'm concerned that we'll spend $100 to collect 10, and the revenues won't come in as expected, and then we'll be in a tough situation. But that's neither here nor there with what you're doing. That's on us. One last thing, do you get more complaints about the fee or dogs currently?
Probably equals out.
Okay. All right. Thank you
Your
very
area,
much.
we have quite a lot of complaints on the fees.
Oh,
in your
Mr.
district.
McLaughlin.
You know, we know that this is a brand-new initiative, and I'm just wondering, through your public education session, what kinds of the pros and cons are you been receiving from this whole animal control report? And how if the cons, people that feel negatively about it, how are we dealing with it?
Again, I've been pleasantly surprised that there's more pros than cons. We've actually had people pay the licensing that live in city limits and don't have to, mainly because they want to know that we have their animal in our database. So especially after hours on the weekends, if their dog's found with the rabies tag on, we can reunite them because we're building that database with the rabies tag. So that's a big sell to the community, you know, if they really care about their pet. So that's been a plus. The cons are more of anti-government, they consider it a tax, even if we tell them it's a fee. You know, they consider it, you can't tell me what to do with my animal. Personally, I don't think asking you to be responsible for your animal and their actions is a bad request. I mean, I think that's a request that everyone has the right to expect, that if you're going to own an animal in Pitt County, you should be responsible for that animal's actions. So I talked to a neighborhood watch group, and I don't think we're asking in the canine control ordinance to keep it contained on your property so it can't bother somebody else is unreasonable. So we're just talking very honest and open. I mean, when I went to that community watch, one of the members gave me a $600 donation check. So that was like the best meeting ever. So basically, I mean, people have actually been more positive than negative. The big thing about any time you have to pay a fee, people think it's more taxes and they don't understand what it's going to be used for. And again, with some explanation, most of the people have at least settled down and realized and been okay with paying it. So, you know, hopefully it's going to balance out. I do think if the cities do come on board, one, it'll be much easier for us to collect as far as time in getting out the notices, because it won't bog us down trying to figure out who's billable and who's not billable. Again, we will have fines associated with the canine control violations. So I'm hoping that's going to bring in some revenue too and get people's attention. You know, when it first rolls out, we're going to try to educate the community and work with them. But if they just don't want to hear it and don't want to accept that responsibility, then we do have the right to issue them a citation.
Anyone else? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Come visit me anytime.
We will. Mr. Manager?
And bring a check.
We never turn down checks, but I have collected over $2,000 in donations in just
That's
this week
great.
alone. So that is a very warming to know that we are supported.
That's good.
Every little bit helps.
Put it towards that building. Yes.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the manager's report, item number 5, your next meeting dates, now that the 2015 calendar year meeting schedule has been adopted, you will be meeting on for the regular meeting on January the 12th at 9 a.m. Then you'll have a capital budgeting workshop on January the 26th at 10 a.m. Item B, as the board is aware, there is a legislative goals conference in Moore County. That is January 15th through 16th. And I believe we have the commissioners attending on that who's asked to be signed up. Did have a couple other things to add to the report that are not on the agenda. One deals with EMS franchises that are coming up for renewals. As the board may remember, in the very recent past, the EMS franchise ordinance was recently reworked and retooled, and you adopted it. One of the changes in that is that the franchise renewals are now changing from a calendar year basis to a fiscal year basis. So we have about 6 different EMS franchises that will actually expire at the end of this current calendar year. What we're requesting or reporting to you is we would like to send them a letter administratively extending their franchise through the fiscal year through June 30th. And then in the springtime, we will notify them of the renewal process based upon the new ordinance and then have it all coincide with the new ordinance. So if that's okay, we will proceed in that manner. Didn't make sense for them to renew for 6 months, then get hit for 12 months because there is a $1,200 renewal fee. So this basically just lets it ride for 6 months and then starts all renewing on a fiscal year basis. On a good news item, wanted to report one of your board members has received a very prestigious award that has not been received by anybody east of I-95 ever, to our knowledge. Commissioner Owens has received an award from the North Carolina Bar Association called the Wade M. Smith Award, and there will be a dinner and a celebration of this in January. And again, this was given by the North Carolina Bar Association. So we wanted to recognize Mr. Owens prior to his formal acceptance of this and congratulate him. And the last item I had not intended on reporting on this, but the paper reported on it, so I felt like I should probably add it to your agenda to report on it since they reported on it. And that's the Martin Community Action article that was in Sunday's front page headline article about their financial woes. Just to recap, the county has not received any type of notification from them making a request. I had reached out to them after discussing it with Commissioner McLaughlin, who was one of their former board members. Now that I think that is going to change with the appointment process tonight. But at this point, no request has been made of Pitt County. I'm waiting for their executive director to give me a call back for her and I to meet, and possibly whoever's going to be named to that board, maybe to sit down and explain where they're at, what they're doing, what the request may or may not be, and then we'll bring it before you at the appropriate time. That's all I have.
Mr. Chairman, I move for acceptance of the items for consent.
Second.
Oh,
I second.
Mr. Chairman, you did want to pull one item.
You said you were through. No, I'm teasing. Go on.
I should have did this when you set the agenda, but number 8, the Carolina Coastal Railway, we would like to pull that and bring that back to you at a later time.
Will you adopt your motion, Madam Vice Chair?
Yes.
All right. And your second?
Yes.
All right, let's vote.
Vote.
Okay. Madam Attorney?
Yes, your first item for decision relates to this board providing consent for construction of the athletic facility at J.H. Rose High School. There's information in your agenda package that relates to this. We were contacted by the superintendent and the Booster Association at J.H. Rose. This property is in the county's name solely because we have it leveraged as collateral in a prior financial transaction. And they wanted to be sure the county was in agreement to moving forward with this structure for athletics, softball and batting cages, since we are the record owner of the property and would have to potentially consent to different zoning or compliance certifications within the city of Greenville. There would be no financial impact for the county, is what we're told and confirmed by the superintendent. It would not cost the county any money, and it would not place any liens against the property.
Mr. Chairman, it's an unusual when you've got a request for something that's not going to cost you any money. And the fact that it's going to benefit the children, I move we approve that.
I second it.
Let's vote.
You vote, Dave.
Okay, Mr. Elliott?
Okay, next on your agenda is the chairman's appointments as listed in your policies and procedures manual. The chairman's appointments are brought back to you at the second meeting in December, and on page 59, you'll find those appointments. Mr. Chairman Webb, do you want to make any comments about those?
Just anyone have any issues with the appointments as presented?
Motion to accept the report, recommendation.
Second.
Vote again. Did it go? Push it.
Try it again, Mr. Hammond, it's not registered. Thank you. Sheriff?
Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
First chance I've had to appear before the new council. Welcome, and look forward to working with you. This is an item that we've had in the past. We asked him to enter a contract with the Walter B. Jones Alcohol Drug Center, where we provide security for them. Basically, we charge them per hour, $38 an hour, and in that calculation is figured the use of the vehicle and uniforms and training, whatever. And it shouldn't cost the county any money. This figure here was basically for a 12-month period, but we're so far along into it, it'll be a 6-month period is what we'll be billing for.
Well, situation getting state money, I move we approve it.
Second.
Any discussion? Let's vote.
Thank you very
Mr.
much.
Sheriff. Congratulations.
Push confirm.
Scott?
Okay, this next item number 4, environmental certification for Pitt Community College. This is a follow-up to the announcement that the PCC is in the process of receiving a $2 million award from the EDA, the Economic Development Administration, for the Sciences Building at Pitt Community College. Again, this would be combined with the $18 million as part of the bond referendum package for a $20 million facility. The EDA has asked the county, as it's a co-applicant with PCC, to make an environmental certification on the site. So within your agenda package, you have attached to that abstract the actual certification that the chairman is being asked to make on behalf of the county. We have looked at this. We've also looked at the Phase 1 environmental assessment that was performed on the property by Pitt Community College and recommend that it be executed and then sent on to the EDA. And my understanding is that the community college will hear by the end of this month as to the success of their application, which we believe is imminent.
Thanks, Scott. Do we have a motion on that?
Mr. Chairman, motion to approve this.
Second.
Any discussion? All right, James? Welcome back.
For purposes of bringing a couple of the new commissioners up to date, before you tonight, we have a request to change the lead agency for our 10-year plan to end chronic homelessness here in Pitt County. And just to orient you a little bit more, again, back in 2008, the Board of Commissioners as well as City Council adopted this plan to end chronic homelessness here in Pitt County within that 10-year period. We're well along our way, and I'll present a couple of stats in just a minute to indicate that. We've been working hard at this. We've got a number of activities that we've been involved with, and we've got a bunch of good partners that have helped us get along the way. With that, just about 3 months ago, we presented to you a midterm report, the 5-year report, to give you an idea of where we stand right now. Again, plenty of accomplishments, but a lot left to be done. So what we did report out is that we've had several events, such as the Project Homeless Connect event that was supported by Pitt County as well as the City of Greenville, and that was just a one-day event that would allow homeless individuals to come in or those that were close to becoming homeless to come in and seek assistance from various service providers. SOAR is just an acronym that would, we have a caseworker that works with individuals that are homeless to help them secure, if they're qualified, disability payments. Also, we've been successful in getting several grants, one for $1 million that went to homeless prevention, and that was early on in our process, and that was to keep people from becoming homeless. And similarly, over the last 3 years, we've just got our last installment that should be coming in January, but the 2 previous years, we've already concluded our emergency solutions grants. And again, this is to help people stay in permanent housing and not become homeless. And all said, within this first 5 years, we decreased chronic homelessness within the community by 88%. So we're well on our way, and we certainly want to eliminate it within the next 5 years. Also in that report, we talked about several things that we wanted to accomplish over the next 5 years, one being changing the lead agency. We really believe it is better suited at a nonprofit, and we've been working with one here locally that I'll introduce in just a minute. Merged the 10-year plan advisory board, and Commissioner McLaughlin serves on that, with our regional committee. And this regional committee is one that's already active and is sanctioned by the state, and we have to have it in place to get some of these grants into our community. Replace our 10-year project manager that was housed in the planning office previously with a homeless program coordinator, most likely at the new lead agency. And there were a couple of other things, such as also establishing a coordinated assessment system that allows homeless individuals to move through the program pretty quickly. So no surprise, and I think we alluded to this at our midterm report back in September, we have been working over the past several months with United Way and its board to talk about this transition of the lead agency role over to their agency, and see some real benefits in allowing that to happen, and that United Way has a lot of goals and objectives very similar to what's being accomplished with this program. It is a neutral nonprofit agency. There may be some other possibilities for additional funding, and they can also provide the oversight for a homeless program coordinator. And Mr. Chairman, I did want to announce we have Jim Cecler here, who's the executive director with United Way, as well as some of our other partners, Bob Williams with Greenville Community Shelters, as well as Amy Modlin, that's doing a dual role. She serves with ECBH, and she's our current chair for our advisory board. So they're here. They've been in support of this transition as well, and here for any questions if you have any. So our recommendations tonight is to enter into a contract with United Way to serve in this capacity as a lead agency. And also, the commissioners, through the planning department's annual budget, has given to this cause each year $30,000. We're requesting that go over to United Way to serve in this capacity, as well as a one-time installment from ECBH that's been earmarked for this program of $15,000, and that would go to really jumpstart this transition. In addition, we recommend that we also formally disband the 10-year Plan Advisory Board. They've served a very good role for us to get us up and started in this, but the regional committee is now the hands-on group that needs to carry this through the next 5 years. So with that, Mr. Chairman, welcome any questions that you have tonight.
Does anyone have any questions or comments for James or anyone else?
Mr. Chairman, serving on that committee, I certainly think this is a very positive move. I think that it also would allow more additional funding, as Mr. Rose stated previously, and I think it would give more community involvement. So I think I would certainly recommend that we approve this and move forward.
Is that a motion?
Yes, sir.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
All right, do we have more discussion? Mr. Farley?
Second it.
Is that it?
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's vote.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
We have some appointments and reappointments to the Development Commission.
Yes, sir. On page 70, you have, on the County's Industrial Development Commission, you have Tyree Walker has resigned from the Development Commission. The City Council on November 13th had recommended or nominated Mike McCarthy. If he is appointed, he would serve through December 2015. There's another city nominee coming forward in the future that will replace another person coming off, Dr. Erickson. You have Dr. David White, who's completing his first full term. He's eligible for reappointment, and if you reappoint him, his term would expire December 2017, or December 2017. Randy Walters is completing an unexpired term and can serve another full term, and that term would expire December of 2017. Then lastly, of Pat Chappell, who's completed 2 terms and is not eligible for reappointment. The Development Commission is recommending Dr. Michael Harris as a replacement, and if you appointed him, that would expire in December 2017.
All right, thank you. Since we have so many, and there's a city and some reappointments, take these one at a time. The Tyree Walker seat that he resigned, does anyone have a nomination for that? And Madam Attorney, nominations do not require a second?
Correct.
Yes. Does anyone have a nomination?
Mike McCarty.
Now, which one are we handling?
The first paragraph,
The first one, Tyree Walker, who resigned.
page 7.
And Mr. Garris has nominated Mike McCarty. Are there any further?
I think that's who the city's recommending.
Yes. Any further nominations? Hearing none, let's vote.
That's the city, though.
Yeah.
Mr. Hammond?
Did you get it, Dave?
Okay, now to the seat for Dr. White, who is up for reappointment. Anyone have a nomination?
I move that we reappoint Dr. White. I serve on that board, and he is doing a very good job, and we want to keep him on there.
Any further nominations?
I'd like to ask a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you look to expand the district representation?
You basically have in your agenda package anybody who has expressed an interest in serving on the Development Commission. And may I ask the clerk or the attorney, on the Development Commission, do these go by areas or district or not? I cannot recall. Yes.
General area.
So they,
Because there are a lot of people from the same district, and the fact that we're weak in our area as far as development, I'd like to see it include someone from our district if we have someone in the database, or could we hold a position?
Sometimes that's
appropriate?
because we don't have any applications from a particular area, but we do try to spread it throughout
I've been
the county.
recruiting.
Sure.
I certainly
you
have
get
been
'em.
recruiting,
Good.
and I
Good,
expect some to
good.
come in.
As they put in, advise us as they're in, and then when there's more appointments coming in, we'll definitely take a look at that and make sure that we have equal representation across the county.
May I respond to that, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Mary, if you look on, and I know you've done this, but, and you talked to me about some of this before, but if you look on page 73 on the left, it shows you the areas. Correct me if I'm wrong, gentleman, lady, but those numbers there show districts, various districts, and as you run down them, they're, as I look at it, there's not a one that's more than one on it. Is that correct? Am I reading that right?
Yeah.
But the districts aren't
Mine
listed.
doesn't have districts on it.
it's seat
say on
number.
the
It's-
left?
Mr. Owens,
seat
it's
number.
seat number, not district.
Oh, over
Oh,
there.
that's a
The
seat number.
is
I'm
in-
wrong, excuse me.
Okay, all right,
I take it back, I'm sorry.
all right.
Tried to help.
Now, the seat is different from the district, right?
That's what I've just told me, you're right.
Okay, let's complete the vote. Mr. Hammond?
Vote. However you want to vote.
Mr. Waters, go ahead, Scott.
Mr. Chairman, on the last vote with Ms. Perkins, Williams, she would need to, before the vote's taken, state the reason for abstaining, right?
What you
Madam
say?
Attorney?
Yes, if she meant to abstain.
Did you mean to abstain on the last one?
Yeah, yes.
You,
What,
technically,
am
you,
I breaking
Point of
regulations?
order is abstaining a proper thing, since there's no,
conflict of interest.
there's no financial, dealings with it, or nothing personal, is there?
No.
Then
It's
I-
just that I'd like to see it
But,
increase.
but I think
You'd
the rules are that you have to vote.
You have to vote
You
for or
can't
against,
abstain.
Okay.
unless you have a true conflict of interest.
You have to have conflict of interest.
No
Chairman,
conflict of
I
interest.
wanted to say to Mr. McLaughlin, gentleman that lives on McDowell Street, right close to Johnny Wooten, is donating, planning on donating a home that him and his wife have to the chronic homeless program, absolutely free to the county.
That's good, good news.
Now, we don't pass that day.
We need to
What
vote
we're
on
doing,
this.
we're re-voting on this, last issue,
This
on
is
the last
doc-
nomination.
The Dr. White.
Dr. White,
You have to vote yes or no.
You're voting on White now?
Correct.
yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Now, the next one up is the Randy Waters seat, which he is up for reappointment and eligible. Do we have
I'd like to move that we accept Randy for his full appointment.
I would like to make a substitute motion of Stacy Gaskins.
It'd be a substitute, it'd be another nomination.
Right.
That's for the-
Just
You're
make
talking
a-
about for the Pat Chapel, right?
No, we're on Randy
I'm
Waters
sorry.
right now.
Which one
We
are
we
you
did,
on?
we had to vote twice. He's rescinded that nomination, and we are
Okay, never mind.
voting
Coming
on
up.
reappointment for Mr. Waters.
Now, my question, can I question it now?
Yes, you may.
I know I don't know all the rules and remember, but the terms here, this is when these appointments will expire?
Yes.
That's right.
Yes.
The ones that we put on tonight, this is when they will expire?
Right, as laid out in the agenda abstract on page 70 and 71. The first one for Michael McCarthy would expire, like we said, in December 2015. Dr. White would expire December 2017. Randy Waters would expire December of 2017.
And we have roughly 4, I think, that
Yeah, you-
are expiring next year, correct?
Okay,
4 that'll be.
all right, thank you.
It's always a rotating basis, if you'll excuse me, on the boards, and they're not all the same. All the terms are not the same for each board, so there's always, seems like, 1 or 2 coming up on each board.
Okay, because I just finished passing out some of the,
Right,
Yes, ma'am.
trying to recruit, and I want
right,
to,
and they have to be in there for a certain
Yeah,
amount of
yeah.
time, yeah.
There's
You're on the
4
right
next year,
track.
and everyone you've had recruited will
Okay.
be eligible next time.
right, Kimberly is giving me some things, and I wanted to not recruit if they already passed, what I'm saying.
Sure. Thank you.
I've lost my place. What are we voting on?
We
right
are
now?
finishing the Randy Waters reappointment vote.
They vote.
I'm ready to unload it. Thank you.
Next is the Pat Chapel seat, who is not eligible for reappointment. Do I have a nomination?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to nominate a Stacy Gaskins, please.
All right, thank you.
I'll second that.
Let's vote. All right, thank you. And now to the reappointment to the Simpson Planning Board.
Okay, on page 94 of your agenda package, flip there. On Simpson Planning Board, Robert Ender's term of the planning board has expired in August of this current year. The Village of Simpson is recommending the reappointment of Mr. Enders. That would expire in August of 2016 if reappointed. There's no other applicants who are on file that meets the criteria, so.
Have a motion for Mr. Enders.
I'd like to move for reappointment of Mr. Enders.
Let's vote.
Because we're on
That was 94.
Ms. Williams,
trying to catch up, I'm sorry.
you're fine. All right, Madam Attorney.
Yes, it has been suggested that this board go into closed session pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11A3 for attorney-client privilege to consult with an attorney employed by the public body in order to preserve the attorney-client privilege. Also under North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11A6, the personnel exception to consider qualifications, competence, performance, character, and fitness of a public employee. And thirdly, under 143-318.11A1 to prevent the disclosure of confidential information.
We have a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion second. Let's vote.
Get it, Dave.
welcome back. We're now back in open session. We have a few items of business to take care of from the closed session. We'll start with Mr. Garris. You have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we create a lead paralegal position with 8 increment increase within pay grade 6 to 7 for Beth Woolard.
Do we have a second?
I second it.
All right, let's vote.
Vote day.
Mary.
Mary, you need to.
Mr. Hammond, Ms. Williams.
I did, I thought I did. Pushed it, I'm sorry.
David.
Mr. Hammond.
Dave, I was trying. For some reason, it's not, did it take?
Yes,
Yes.
thank you.
Yeah, we got it.
It took.
Yeah.
Mr. McGlowhorn, do you have a motion?
Yes, motion to approve the closed session minutes from November 17, 2014.
Do you have a second? Mr. Owens. Commissioner Ward, do you have a motion?
Yes, I have a motion to change the grant-funded health educator Terry Quinn's pay grade from increment number 1 to increment number 9.
Have a second?
Second.
Let's vote. Confirm, Mr.
Well, now
Golds.
mine's not working. There he goes.
All right, Mr. Owens, you have a motion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I move that this board authorize the chairman to execute an online hotel motel occupancy tax issue.
I second.
Let's vote. All right. That's all the business we have. Commissioners' comments. We'll start with Mr. Farley. Do you have any comments?
No, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much for asking.
Mr. Garris?
No comment.
No comments.
No comment.
Mr. Owens?
No, sir.
None.
None.
Mr. Hammond?
Any comments?
Congratulations, you got through it.
Thank
got a
you.
motion.
You got a motion? I move that we close.
I had one.
Have a motion to adjourn. Do we have a second?
Second it.
I don't know why you didn't make it.
I'd already made it, but